Hey guys, today we're going to do 1-4, which is literal equations and formulas. We're still going to be solving equations. We're just going to be rearranging the formulas instead of solving for an actual answer this time. So, example number 1. Janet wants to calculate the time it takes to earn a certain amount of interest on a principal amount in an investment with a simple interest. What equation can she use? So your equation that you're given is I equals P times R times T. I is interest, P is principal, R is rate, and T is time. Janet wants to calculate the time. So in order to do that, we need to get T all by itself on one side. So the equation says equals T, and everything else is on this side. Okay, in order to do that, we have to do the opposite, just like we do when we're solving equations. So for that to happen, these three things are all being multiplied together, which means we need to do the opposite, and that's divide. Now, in order to divide, we have to take both of these at the same time. So we're going to divide by PR on both sides. The PRs both cancel out, and we are left with I over PR equals T. There it is, solved for T all by itself on one side. Okay, so your try it is to pause and try to figure out how I can rearrange this formula up here to be calculated for the principal amount. So you want it to equal P when it's all done, and everything else will be over here. Okay, so pause and try that now, and then come back and check your work. Okay, so if you've unpaused, you should have I equals PRT. We're solving for P, which means I need to get rid of R and T. So again, all being multiplied means I'm going to do the opposite and divide. Those are gone, and I have I divided by RT equals P. And there would be your answer. Okay, next question. We have, in a half hour, Sarah is meeting her friends at the lake that's 6 miles from her house. At what average speed must she ride or bike to get there on time? So distance equals rate times time. Okay, we need to get to see what average speed must she be at, which is your rate. So I want to get rate all by itself, which means I have to get rid of time. They're being multiplied together, so I need to divide. So divide by T on both sides. Those are gone. Distance divided by time equals rate. So there's our equation. Now let's plug in what we know in order to help her figure out how long it will take. Or how fast she has to go. Sarah's meeting her friend at the lake in a half an hour. Okay, time is measured in hours, so I'm going to put 0.5 for half of an hour. The distance is 6 miles from her house, so 6 goes on top. That's going to give us her rate, and 6 divided by 1/2 is 12. So 12 miles per hour is how fast she'll have to travel in order to make it there on time. All right, so your try it is the same exact thing. Distance over time equals rate will still be your equation. And then you'll have to actually plug in 2.5 miles away at only 15 minutes. So pause now and do that. Okay, hopefully you have the answer. Distance would be 2.5 miles over 15 minutes, which is 0.25. It's a quarter of an hour. That would give you your rate, okay? And this should be 10. So rate equals 10 miles per hour. All right. So example 3, okay, would be perimeter. So a worker at a framing store is making a rectangular frame. All right. He knows that the perimeter of the frame is 144 inches and the length is 40 inches. How can he determine the width of the frame? So we want to know the width, which means we have to isolate this variable here, W. So let's do the opposite. We have P equals 2L plus 2W. I want to keep W and get rid of all the rest. So the first thing to go would be 2L because it's one term. It's being added, so we're going to subtract it. You don't actually subtract anything. We're just moving terms around. Okay? Then 2 is with W. It's the only thing left, so we're going to divide by 2 in order to get W by itself. And there's our final equation. P minus 2L over 2 equals W. Okay, now to actually solve for the width, we need to plug in what they gave us for information. So if it's 144 inches for perimeter and the length is 40, let's plug in what they gave us. 144 for perimeter minus 2 times 40 for the length divided by 2. And if you type that in your calculator, you get 144 minus 80 over 2, which gives you 144 minus 80, okay. 144 minus 80 is 64. Oops. So 64 divided by 2 equals 32 inches for the width. Okay. All right, so the next try I'm just going to go ahead and do with you. It's a little bit trickier. It's actually got a fraction in it, and I want you to put a little big note out to your side here that when we have a fraction in there, we always have to get rid of the fraction first every single time. And there's going to be a couple different ways we can do that. We can either multiply by the reciprocal, okay, or we can multiply by the denominator, whichever one fits depending on what type of fraction it is. So in this case, we're trying to solve in terms of h, which means we want our equation to say equals h when we're done. Okay, so we have area equals 1/2 base times height. Okay, this type of fraction has a 1 on top. So if I multiply by the denominator, I can get rid of the fraction altogether. So if I multiply by 2 on both sides, these cancel, and I'm left with 2a equals b times h. I want h to be by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by b, and these cancel, and now I have 2a over b equals h. There's my equation. Now to actually solve, I need to plug in and find out the answer. So a is 18, b is 9, so 2 times 18 divided by 9 equals h. Okay, 2 times 18 is 36 over 9 equals h, which means 4 inches is the height. Okay, so again, fractions go first, okay? Reciprocal or denominator, doesn't matter which one, depends on the fraction that you have in front of you, okay? So, example 4. According to Teo's bread recipe, he should bake the bread at 190 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. His oven measures temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. So to what temperature in degrees Fahrenheit should he set his oven? Okay, so here is the formula for Celsius. We need to change it so that it's solving for Fahrenheit. So Teo can bake his bread. So we have C equals 5/9 times F minus 32. Okay? In this case, we have another fraction, but multiplying by the denominator is only going to get rid of 9. So in order to get rid of the entire fraction, we have to multiply, in this case, by the reciprocal, 9 over 5. Okay? That way, the 9's cancel and the 5's cancel when we multiply. Okay, so I'm left with 9/5 C equals F minus 32. I took out the parentheses because we're not distributing anything anymore, so there's no need to have them. Then we are able to look at just this part. If I need F by itself, the only thing left to do is move 32. Now remember, you're not actually adding 32. I said move 32. So 9/5 C plus 32 equals F. And there is your formula. Okay, now if Teo wants to bake his bread and he needs to have it at 190 degrees Celsius, then we're going to plug 190 in for C and solve. So 9/5 times 190 plus 32 equals F. Simply type this in your calculator from left to right, and you should get that he needs to bake it at 374 degrees Fahrenheit.